Hello and welcome to the Talking NorCal podcast, the official podcast of Active NorCal. I am your host, Zach O'Brien, and with me here, as always, it is the chef, Brien. Oh, Brien, how you doing, Bob?
In the house, feeling good, feeling great. It's Thanksgiving week, and I am thankful.
It is Thanksgiving week, and we have a lot to talk about today. A lot happened. We had huge storms. We had all this different wildlife news. It's kind of crazy, all this news that came out since we've talked about these different stories. So we're going to do a lot of updates with you today. No interview today. We're going to have an interview next week, and then we're going to do a movie review the week after. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, this podcast is brought to you by the Active NorCal magazine. We have issue number 15 being printed as we speak, and we have a little gift for the listeners of the Talking NorCal podcast. At checkout, when you subscribe to the magazine, use code Talking NorCal to get $10 off your subscription. We do not promote this anywhere else except if you listen to this podcast. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, you're the only people that are hearing this deal. So use the code Talking NorCal to get $10 off of the Active NorCal magazine. We got a lot to get to. Let's go to the Tahoe's hella NorCal.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and there are no salad dudes who kick it down in Santa Cruz. Or NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal.
It's a busy week here in Northern California.
Wet and busy.
Wet, very. It's so crazy how this hit us so quick. And, I was thinking the other day, the leaves have certainly turned in my neighborhood and it looks awesome.
I love it. This time of year is fantastic.
But we almost didn't get the fall season. Usually it doesn't start raining heavy like this till December, but it's great.
And honestly, I think that we got an expedited fall season look, winter fall season, because all of those leaves that were turning colors were still on the trees, but with all of this rain, it's kind of knocked a lot of them off. And so now there's leaves everywhere and the trees are starting to get a little bit more bare, but I just love the color change.
Yes. We have color change. It's wet. But the big news of the week was the heavy rain, the flooding, and the snow brought to you by the bomb cyclone that hit Northern California and the rest of the Pacific Northwest last week. It was big. I mean, we had snow all over, the Mount Shasta area. We had snow from Lassen all the way down to Mammoth and the Sierra. Then we had heavy flooding in Humboldt County. We had heavy flooding in Sonoma County, heavy flooding around Chico. Unfortunately, these sort of storms come with, dangers. 2 people passed in Sonoma, getting caught in the floods. There were all sorts of crashes and issues on high elevation roads throughout the Sierra. And
I heard there was a woman in Washington who was taking a shower and a tree fell over, hit her house and killed her.
I read that too.
The scariest thing possible while you're in the most vulnerable environment you possibly could be.
Yeah, it was historic. I mean, the amount of rain that we were getting for those dates were record breaking. I saw, I forget which day it was, the Sacramento had its rainiest day of, it had a record breaking rain day. So
yeah, so we had the bomb cyclone, but we also had the atmospheric river, excuse me, at the same time. And so 1 + 2 equaled massive storm. And it all started last Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
And our dad was here visiting in town, the illustrious Chip O'Brien. And him and I took a trip up to Redding because he actually spoke at the Shasta Trinity Fly Fishers Club, which shout out to them. They have a phenomenal new clubhouse that I was very impressed with. But we drove up right at the beginning of the storm, and it was absolute bomb cyclone. Tons of rain, even more wind, so much so that I text you this on our drive home that there were, big rigs that were just on the side of the freeway. All of the truck stops and all of the rest stops were completely full. And I saw a couple of truckers interviewed, those that were able to get to a truck stop and get a spot were lucky, because the ones that had to sit on the side of the freeway, they only could eat what they have there. A lot of them don't just stock up a ton of food to be ready because they couldn't climb over the summit. So, it affected a tremendous amount of people.
I-5 was closed from Fawndale right before Shasta Lake all the way to Weed, California. So however many miles that is, it's actually not a ton of miles, but it is a crucial roadway to get from Redding past Mount Shasta, and it was closed for a while.
And even on the part of the highway that we were on I-5, there were a ton of cars that had slid out, because of so much rain. They hydroplaned, they flipped their car. I didn't see any fatalities or any injuries, but several cars on the side of the road because they had either spun out or what have you.
It was certainly crazy. It was crazy to watch, but it did come with some good news. I mean, precipitation's always great, right? Especially this early in the season.
No more fires. Fires are behind us this year.
Fire season is officially over. Saying that this early is pretty rare. Also, the lakes rose at an incredible rate. I think Lake Oroville was up 9 feet. Lake Sonoma was up 12 feet from the storm.
That's crazy.
Shasta Lake was, I believe, 4 or 6 feet. So, a ton of new water moving into our systems. Also, we got a ton of snow, which is great. All the ski resorts are just jumping for joy right now.
And all the snowboarders and skiers and all of the people that come to Northern California for snow in the winter, everybody's happy.
Yeah, same. So Palisades Tahoe opened early. North Star opened early. I believe Heavenly opened early. Mount Shasta Ski Park just announced they're opening December 11th, which for them is pretty darn early in the season. A couple seasons ago, they didn't open till January. So
remember when we used to go to North Star every Thanksgiving?
Every Thanksgiving we went for however many years, many years.
It was so cool.
But they always had a lot of snow.
They did.
On
I was just thinking about that.
And that hasn't been so the last few years.
Right.
And so, I forget when I think they only opened like 3 days early or something. But so they were going to be open either way on Thanksgiving.
We loved it. It was like a hotel room almost vibe feeling, and they had like a little arcade where we would hang out. But then every year we would make sure to have turkey chili on Thanksgiving because we didn't have a whole turkey because we're in like a hotel room. But great memories.
I think we did that for at least like 6 to 8 years
something like
straight.
That, probably. Yeah.
But that was before Vail bought North Star. North Star's a much different place. I mean, we used to get a ski in, ski out apartment or hotel room or whatever, and I don't think that's even affordable now. I don't even think it's even close to being affordable now. So, great news all around. Really cool to see.
Not as many fatalities as I thought. Like, obviously, there were a few, and that's sad, but I think everyone was pretty well prepared for this to an extent. I think everyone kind of everyone heeded to the announcements. They decided to stay home and not drive as much as they could, and so that's great news too. Yeah,
in the upcoming issue of Active NorCal magazine, issue 15, we did a big article on Caltrans and how they deal with these big winter storms. And I interviewed a couple people from Caltrans, and one was talking about just the importance of relaying the information to the public. Do not go out on the roadways. And I think we play a part in that, and for that, I'm thankful for that we're able to cover this stuff and try to keep people safe. But of course, people are going to move around; they're going to travel whenever they want. People can do whatever they want. But it is important to know that when these things happen, you're putting yourself and other people in danger by going out into the mountains, by going out into flooded areas. I mean, the two people that passed away were in Sonoma and during a flood. So
massive floods in Sonoma.
Yeah.
That's where all the videos I'm seeing of the overflow river. It's crazy there.
Yeah. So, it's good. It's net positive, but of course, with these big storms, there's always, some inconvenience, and not only inconvenience. I mean, there's threat to health and life. So,
and we have another atmospheric storm on the way. It doesn't look like it's going to affect the Sacramento area where we are as much, but it
might a little bit. It's going to be a little bit further south, right? So Yosemite's going to get hit hard. Mammoth's going to get hit hard. It's really aiming towards that central eastern Sierra region.
But according to my weather map, it's showing no precipitation after today, which is great because, I mean, we may try to sneak in a round or two of golf in the next week or two. It's been too long.
So it is a good start to winter for Northern California, so we're excited. There was also some more news that we had, which we had our great interview with Amaruk Wise.
Big wolf news in California.
Yeah, and by the way, the response to that podcast has been a lot. A lot of people listen to it. A lot of people watch the videos. Our social media posts went crazy. A lot of people arguing about wolves, and I think there's some people that are just going to have their biases and perceptions of wolves, and that's fine. And I think as we get further along in this path of wolves coming back into California, we're going to sort of learn some more of how to manage it. So I'm not saying that these people in the comment section are always wrong. Some people are extremely wrong.
Stay in the comment section, people.
A lot of people saying, these wolves are going to kill all your kids and kill your pets and all that stuff. It's just false. But so Amaruk, when we interviewed her on the last podcast, she mentioned that there's going to be news of some more wolves coming out. Sure enough, like the day after, we saw that they released some news of some dispersed wolf packs all around Northern California. One of which has part of its territory in Lassen Volcanic National Park. So they haven't named this wolf pack or anything, but and I believe it's just a male and a female, or at least one, possibly two offspring, it says. But they're they're all around the area, Lassen National Forest, including Lassen National Park. So we do have a wolf pack in a national park. Pretty cool.
It's awesome. And I talked about it. We saw the population double last year, more than double last year. And
this year,
they're going to continue to do this.
Yeah.
They're going to continue to do this. So these stories aren't going away. So you wolf haters in the comment section, just keep it up. Keep up your comments are actually going to make the wolves go away. So just keep up the comments down there below. Like and subscribe. I love this because they're clearly from another pack and they're expanding. So there's multiple packs now, and these packs are just going to grow and grow and grow. And so I think that at some point we're going to have to mediate how many we allow in the state, because at some point they're going to cause some havoc.
Well, we spoke with Amaruk about it. We're not even close, right? Like that's according to her and according to studies done. I mean, we can hundreds, if not thousands, we can have.
Well, hundreds. We're right there. If we double
we'll
again
be next year. Yeah. I think over 100. I think so. Yeah, but just looking at this map of the new, these wolf packs don't have names, but there's one like kind of near Red Bluff, in Tehama County. There's one. It looks like it's like Shingletown.
The lone wolves, you're saying?
No, these dispersed wolf packs that they don't have a name for. They don't really know a lot about them. They're certainly not tracking them yet. There's one up in Modoc. So they're really concentrating on settling in this sort of, the Lassen, basically the northern Sierra area. There's now like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like almost 10 wolf packs there.
In what? 3 years? How many years?
It's been 5.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true. It's 2017. So 7
years.
Yeah. Yes. So also another piece of wolf information that came out is there's a brand new wolf pack just north of Lake Tahoe, sort of northwest of Lake Tahoe. And this one actually has a name. It's the Diamond Pack.
Yeah.
approximately 50 miles north of Lake Tahoe. The third new wolf pack documented in California this year. So it is one adult male and one adult female who have been traveling together for at least 6 months, and the officials believe they could have offspring as soon as next year. So
they don't yet have offspring, but they are two wolves that are fully capable.
Yes. So
in Tahoe, nonetheless.
Yes. I don't have the numbers in front of me. So how many wolf packs, like actual named wolf packs? 9 wolf packs now. So
9 wolf packs in 7 years.
9 wolf packs in 7 years.
And growing quickly.
Well, if you're counting the Shasta pack, that's 10, because the Shasta pack mysteriously disappeared, something we didn't talk about with Amaruk, but I've talked to her about it, and I think it's pretty clear that they were killed. The Shasta pack, we're going to go deep on the Shasta pack one of these days, because to me, it's if we're talking about wolves, it's a fascinating story. But yeah, so these are
wolves are fully back.
Wolves are back. This new wolf pack is one of the most southernmost wolf packs.
Yeah.
So,
but that's not. I mean, they're going to continue to move south.
Yeah. It's only Beckworth, Antelope, and the Yoalami. I can never say that pack's name. Yoalami pack are further south than them, but. Like I said, they're taking up space in the Northern Sierra. So as these wolves continue to move in, they're going to continue to settle in further south. So fascinating news. Yeah, that's the wolf news that we had to cover because
it's big time news.
It is. Amaruk sort of previewed it a little bit.
We'll get her on here
again
in the not too distant future.
So there's one more thing that I wanted to talk to you about because, we'll have our normal NorCal Notes of the week coming up here. But something came up. Was it last week or the week? It was the week before. It was right after we filmed our last episode about aliens, right? So the Congress basically had this committee talking about what they now call UAPs. It used to be UFOs. They now call it.
They've renamed them like
unidentified alien phenomena or something like that. And basically, there's these different people. One guy used to work for the UAP task force within the Pentagon, and he's claiming all this crazy stuff, right? That the Pentagon, even though they deny it, they have biological creatures that, from crash sites, they are trying to reverse engineer all this stuff. And the biggest thing for me, because we've heard this type of stuff before, the biggest thing for me is now think that they come out of the ocean or that they have some sort of basis within the earth. And I went on a complete deep dive of this.
Tell me more, because I heard about the underwater, the under the earth, not as much. I mean,
well, so that was more on my deep dive. They didn't really talk about. They did mention the ocean in this Congress hearing, but not sort of when I went on a deep dive. People were talking about they see them coming in and out of the earth as well, which makes sense. Like it just got me thinking: are we about to be proven that Lemurians are real? Like, are Lemurians this? For one, okay, all the stories we hear about Lemurians, right? There's this city in Mount Shasta that has this, these different technologies. They talk telepathically, and also you get all sorts of UFO sightings coming in and out of Mount Shasta. With the cloud coverage that mountain gets and the lenticular clouds that look like UFOs. To me, it's the first thing I thought about. Holy shit, are we about to learn that Lemurians are actually these alien creatures that are coming in and out?
Yeah, I doubt it.
Okay.
The people that have experienced Lemurians on Mount Shasta saw the Lemurians like walking around. They weren't in spaceships in clouds, right? And so I don't know. I do think that there are alien entities out there. Lemurians are one I'm putting my foot down, like non-existent. I love that people believe in them, I guess. But yeah, it's not for me.
Well, so again, I went on this deep dive. Who knows what's real and what's not?
You didn't, in your research, did you see any name of Mount Shasta in any of the...
No, but I did hear people talking about Lemurians. I did specifically... Well, again, this was an internet deep dive, and so you never know.
On TikTok?
Yeah, of course, I was on TikTok, YouTube. So, but all I'm saying is that, like, if this is... I have always been extremely skeptical about Lemurians, right? But now we're having if the UFOs that people have been seeing are coming in and out of the ocean, or which these people at Congress confirmed, or they're coming in and out of the earth, it only to me says, man, maybe that Lemurian thing isn't as crazy as I thought.
Well, and we haven't really talked about how I got you that guy's book and that we went to it, and it's actually pretty funny. We went to the page that Active NorCal has mentioned, and it's just a transcription of a podcast that he was on.
He transcribed a podcast, and they also have links
there is a link in the text
in the physical book.
It's not. This isn't an ebook. This is a printed book that has a link.
It's like one of those.
It's the body of the book, not at the beginning, not at the end. Literally,
it's also not a shrunken link. It's like a super long link with all which
we should go to one day.
Yeah, we could do it. I mean, going into that book, I feel like I can't do it respectfully towards the man who wrote it, quote unquote, wrote it. Right, so that's why I didn't necessarily want to go through it. But
you quickly found our mention.
Yeah, he mentioned our podcast.
He mentioned that we mentioned him. He mentioned on a podcast that we mentioned him,
and then he transcribed said podcast and put it in said printed book. It's a very interesting, anyway.
It's nice to be involved in the conversation, at least.
All I'm saying is that with this new evidence from Congress, from people in the Pentagon, I'm now a little bit more open to Lemurians.
That's all I'm saying. We should do a poll for our audience. Do you believe Lemurians live in Mount Shasta?
But I just think this is new evidence. That's all.
You can even pose it based on the new evidence released by the government. Do you believe Lemurians live in Mount Shasta?
Because it's if we're saying that UFOs aren't coming from space, instead they're coming from Earth. All I'm saying is whatever these creatures are, Lemurians. That could be them.
I would like to see the results. I'll bet you there would be a lot of people that would be believing, or at least the way that you pose the question. Like, do you think it is more likely today than 2 years ago? Now that the government has acknowledged living UAE or whatever, that Lemurians could possibly live in Mount Shasta.
I don't know how you don't say yes to that. It is more.
I guess you're right.
It is more likely that Lemurians exist now that I know this information that was posed to Congress than 2 weeks ago before I knew this.
I guess that in a court of law that would be considered leading.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, look, I'm not saying I believe it. I do believe in UFOs. I do believe in this UAP stuff. I do believe these guys who are in front of Congress who worked at the Pentagon. I also, one of the guys, the main guy, went on a deep dive of him, and he says some interesting stuff, but he also doesn't say, he makes sure to cover his tracks a little bit so he doesn't get in trouble or assassinated or whatever. So, and anyway, Lemurians, not so crazy.
Could be.
Okay, that does our quick Lemurian talk I wanted to have. Let's do a quick break before we go to the NorCal Notes of the Week. The Talking NorCal podcast is brought to you by the Active NorCal magazine, the premier destination for outdoor content in Northern California. A $30 subscription will get you 2 issues a year, but check this out. I have a deal for you. By using the code TalkingNorCal in the checkout, you can get $10 off your $30 subscription.
That is a 33% discount.
33.33% discount. The Active NorCal magazine is awesome. We cover all sorts of great stuff in the issues. We have our winter issues. We have our spring, summer issues. editions. So subscribe to the podcast. Again, it's Talking NorCal is the promo code. Go to store.activenorcal.com, click on magazine, subscribe. It's really great. We appreciate the support.
Listen, if you go outside in Northern California at all, just going outside of a building, you are perfect to read this magazine. There is exclusive content in this magazine that you will not find anywhere else. Again, promo code Talking NorCal gets you a 33 1/3 discount off of an annual subscription. Let's go.
If you have left a couch within the past 3 years, you should get this magazine. Once again, promo code Talking NorCal. That's the Active NorCal magazine. Now back to the pod.
Yes, remember to subscribe to the Active NorCal magazine. The next issue is going to be fantastic. I promise. Okay, let's get to the NorCal Notes of the week. First story, Placer County approves massive expansion plan at Palisades Tahoe. We've talked about this before. A lot of cars coming to Tahoe.
I don't know if we have a whole lot to add because we talked about this at length last week, and this is not surprising. Placer County Board of Supervisors approved it originally years ago. Then the Palisades Tahoe changed the plan to eliminate, among other things, the massive indoor water park, but also shrink the project a little bit. Environmental groups still oppose this strongly. Locals still oppose this strongly. It is they're going to basically transform the existing parking lot at Palisades Tahoe to a new hub with 850 lodging units, to over 200,000 square feet of commercial space, and new housing for 300 employees. Essentially, environmental analysis says that it will generate an additional 1,300 additional cars on Tahoe's roads every single day. And on the extreme traffic days, like a Saturday, Bluebird Saturday morning at the ski resorts, more than 3,300 vehicles could be on the roadway at one time. Places like Sierra Watch and League to Save Lake Tahoe are saying this sort of extra traffic is going to seriously diminish the health of Lake Tahoe, the clarity of Lake Tahoe, and the overall environment. So I don't think that the fight is over, but this was once again approved.
We talked about it last time that if Palisades Tahoe was anywhere closer to the actual lake itself, it would have had to have been approved by a different entity and would never have gotten approval. They are much more strict on their standards. This Placer County Board of Supervisors unanimously approved it. So,
as they did the first time. Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, there are some potential hangups again coming. But yeah, massive expansion looks like to be coming to Palisades.
This is the full-blown vilification of Tahoe. It's gentrification, whatever you want to call it. It is, look, I love Palisades Tahoe. It's my favorite mountain in Tahoe. It is, I like the people that work there. I like everything that they do, all the events. I think they're just an awesome place. And again, I get the business idea behind this. They're going to make a lot of money, right? But when you're sacrificing local stability for the locals, right? Like being able to move around at will, being able to go to, the grocery store or whatever is going to be very difficult for those people living in Tahoe City and Truckee. And then also the environmental impacts, to me, just goes a little bit too far. That's my opinion. But we'll see. This fight will continue with the environmental groups.
We will keep you up to date. Stay tuned to the Talking NorCal podcast for all up-to-date news on all things outdoor and active lifestyle in Northern California. Okay, next story. This is a positive story. Coho salmon returns to Upper Klamath River Basin for the first time in over 60 years because of dam removal.
I did not even know that Coho salmon were in the Klamath River until now. And this is one of the beautiful things about the return to wild that is, the largest dam removal project in American history on the Klamath River, removing the 4 dams. And these we've mentioned this in the past. These fish are sitting there trying to get to their ancestral spawning grounds. They never were able to for the last 100 years. Now they are able to. And what do you know? Coho salmon just came back. They got it on. I think, what did they say? They found seven returning.
5 wild, 2 from hatcheries, which I
5
thought was really cool.
Yes, because hatcheries have been trying to keep these species alive, right? These runs alive throughout the years, knowing that someday this could happen. We have the Chinook salmon coming back in droves, seemingly, and then now they're saying that Coho are coming back as well. This is all part of the brand new $35 million Fall Creek Fish Hatchery in Siskiyou County.
We visited one recently, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I mean, first of all, these Coho salmon are like red and they're absolutely gorgeous fish. It's really hard to really evaluate how big these salmon are in Northern California until you get into one of these hatcheries. I mean, if I imagine seeing a bright red, humongous Coho salmon like that, that'd be so cool.
So speaking of, Taylor Creek right now has its Coho salmon run going on, and those things are super bright and they have like those crazy noses that peak up. But yeah, Coho are awesome. I mean, having multiple runs of salmon on the Klamath are amazing. The Fall Creek Hatchery is aiming to raise 75,000 Coho salmon annually in order to help restore the populations. That's on top of, they're basically trying to produce 3.25 million Chinook annually. And if you know anything about these fish hatcheries, that's the babies, right? We know that most of those babies do not survive their trip out to the ocean. In fact, especially right now, I would say that number is probably, 2% survive that journey, both on the Klamath, on the Sacramento River with the Coleman Fish Hatchery, and on the American River with the Nimbus. All these different hatcheries, the survival rate of these baby Chinook salmon are pretty low, but maybe they're going to get better in the coming years, especially on the Klamath. So this is great news. It's really cool to see all this happening as fast as it is. I've seen some people in our comment section saying, "Oh, these are planted fish. This is just a PR stunt by the CDFW to say what they did is good." And all I'm going to say is, these salmon have been trying to get here for years. They've been trying to get past these dams for years. It's their ancestral spawning grounds. Their
bodies just do it. Their bodies just want them to do it. It's just that it's built into them. They've been there 60 years. That's let's just say 20 generations of fish. Like, they don't, do we even have a name for 20 generations ago? Like the great,
Yeah.
So like, it's natural for them. And so to see them coming back so quickly and so naturally is awesome. And it's just going to get more and more. But yeah, we definitely want to see this Coho salmon.
Well, we'll talk about it. We were just at Nimbus Fish Hatchery. Those fish want nothing more than to get to the place where they can spawn. I think humans can't understand how ingrained this is to their species. It's all they want to do it's the end of their life. They spawn, they die. It's, for whatever reason, it's all they want to do. So this is not surprising at all. If you look at historical dam removals like the Elwha in Washington, this is exactly what happened there too. And now they have a super loaded salmon run. So this is great news. I know there's a lot of people that are rooting against this for some reason, but pretty cool to see Coho in here.
Okay, so we were talking about the rejuvenation of the Coho salmon. Next story. Northern California biologists are hunting barred owls to save the spotted owls. Kind of a weird story.
Yeah, so we've never talked about this on the podcast, but it's an old story from back earlier this year in May. The U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife announced this controversial plan to kill 500,000 barred owls over the next 30 years in order to reduce habitat competition for the endangered spotted owls. So again, it's kind of crazy to say, hey, we're going to kill 500,000 animals to save other animals. I don't know exactly how I feel about it, but there was this just this week, there was a Washington Post feature about biologists who are actually out in the North Coast in the Humboldt area doing this. These are biologists that, take their shotguns out and they go hunt for these barred owls. And, it's we highlighted it on our website, and I do recommend you go look at the Washington Post feature. The link's on our website. It's fascinating. It says over the past years, they've already killed over 1,000 barred animals from Northern California. And all these owls are really like these tiny little owl species. Like, the spotted owl has really limited forestry, especially around the Weaverville area, and logging and timber. And so they've become this really, really controversial animal.
So it is a weird story to have an opinion about. What I started to think about when I really dove deep into it is this is survival of the fittest. It's kind of evolution at its best,
Yep.
But that being said, there are caveats to that, because there's probably, and I'm not a spotted owl expert by any means,
Enthusiast.
but there's probably reason that those spotted owls numbers diminished. They were maybe hunted by man. Maybe we had something to do with that. This story is talking about how the barred owls are more, they are, what am I trying to say? They're more aggressive birds.
Yeah.
They are more aggressive at getting the same housing space. Yes, there are, maybe even there's millions and millions of trees in Northern California that these owls can live in, but the barred owls are kicking the spotted owls out of the best places because they're bigger and stronger. They're also eating the majority of the prey. And so these numbers are diminishing in right now. Maybe in the past it's been something else, but it's because of these barred owls. And again, I think it's kind of survival of the fittest. Is it sad? Yes. How many times has this happened in the evolution of the planet? There's probably millions of species that are extinct that we'll never even really know about because they just died. So that's what my mind came to. Obviously, I think that the biologists know more than me, and any biologists I've ever met are animal lovers. So what they're doing is they're being proactive to save lives in the long
these
run.
Specific biologists said it's super emotionally taxing on them to kill these birds that they love, but it's their commitment to conservation type of thing.
So that's kind of how I feel about it. It sucks. Spotted owls are probably beautiful. Barred owls are beautiful though, and so for me it's almost like let nature take its course. But we do want to keep. We don't like animals being extinct. It's not something that we as a human race enjoy, although it is part of evolution of a planet and things like that. So I want to save the spotted owl, so I think this is great, but it's just at some point, nature just takes its course.
It's interesting, and they're based on they want to kill 500,000. Apparently, that's only 1% of the global population of these owls. So, in their mind, it's kind of a small sacrifice. That being said, it is like we're playing God, and I think
right, exactly.
I think we do this a lot, and sometimes I agree with it, and sometimes I don't, and I don't know why. In some cases, they talk me into it, and sometimes they don't. In this case, I'm not necessarily talked into it. I understand that we don't want to lose these endangered species, but if they can't cut it, they can't cut it, right?
Yeah, I can see limiting hunting. You're not allowed to hunt for these birds, right? But
they haven't been able.
Of course,
you're
right.
not.
But going out and actually killing their foe because they're just better at living, that it's tough.
It is. It's like they do these programs where there's some sort of dominant fish in a lake that is not necessarily great for the overall habitat. So the wildlife officials will literally pay people to go and fish and take these fish out of lakes.
And it's very similar because they're always kind of invasive, and they are.
And that to me, I kind of understand more, maybe because I like different fish more than I care about owls. I don't know. And so maybe a biologist would have the same love for these different owl species. It's weird. It's weird. And certainly like animal rights activists are crying huge foul here. But anyway, I mean, I do recommend going and actually reading the Washington Post figure or article, because they really do go into the controversy and the not only the controversy of this topic, but the controversy within the biologists' heads as they are bringing the shotgun out to the forests of Humboldt, of the North Coast, and shooting these birds. So we don't have to talk anymore about it. It's such a weird story that I do want to continue to cover as we get more information on, especially since it's happening right in our backyard.
Not to like stretch the story on any longer, but it is. I like the way that you said it's us playing God, because looking back at just the topics we've talked about today, gray wolves coming back to California, that was because we pushed them out,
Yeah.
The salmon returning to the Klamath, that's because we pushed them out.
Yeah.
The barred owls, we're pushing out the barred owls to save the spotted owls. It does feel like we're playing God in a lot of instances.
Do you remember when we went steelhead fishing with Ian Strade on the Trinity?
Yeah.
And they were, by the way, this is very timely because steelhead season is popping off on the Trinity right now. All I see is steelhead pictures. But when we went fishing with Ian, there were all these different like large mounds of rocks, and they had like backhoes in there. And he was explaining to us that they were trying to enhance salmon habitat on the river by sort of moving the water around. And it totally backfired on them. They spent a ton of money on it, and it didn't work. And in fact, the salmon runs got worse off, and and it's like, you can't play God. You know what I mean? You cannot think that we're going to bring back all these species by stepping in and doing. You just have to let them do their, they will figure it out, and sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot in that way by caring too much. So also, we don't know the overall impact of like killing all these owls. What if there's another animal that is like, what if like mice or something? I'm not a biologist, but there's all these impacts that we just never foresee when we try to play God like this, that I could see happening. So anyway, interesting story.
I mean, there's like mosquito infections that come to town, and like those are, it's like, okay, like these are going to kill human beings.
Yes.
These are going to kill animals. Like there's ways where playing God, like evolution, we would like to put a little bit of a stop to, but nature's got to take its course. It's going to take its course, The animals are probably going to be here far after humans. Who knows? In fact, you've seen Dune, right?
Yeah.
I keep thinking about how like the time is set in 10,100. It just blows my mind how far away it is, time wise.
Yeah.
Like like we're at 2000 BC. They don't even say BC in it, so it could be another. And I don't know. My mind has been going wild with the idea of the evolution of like what 10,000 years would do to so many things.
If humans survive, and if all these animals, a lot of these animals are not going to survive, and there's going to be new iterations, and it's evolution.
10,000 years isn't actually that long as far as like the history of the Earth goes, and humans have been alive for longer than 10,000 years. But now that we are like, as long as we don't kill ourselves, if we continue to advance for 10,000 years, like that blows my, like I don't even know where to even begin to think about.
Lemurians.
Yes, nice. All right. one last story on the NorCal Notes of the Week. This is a follow-up story of a story we've talked about before. AT&T lead cable successfully removed from Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, we don't need to talk a lot about this. We've talked about it on a previous podcast. The League to Save Lake Tahoe. Well, first and foremost, AT&T had these cables that, according to some researchers, were emanating a ton of lead from them and putting really bad lead poisoning into the lake. So they were sued successfully. Well, they were sued and came to an agreement. And AT&T, along with the League to Save Lake Tahoe, successfully completed the removal of these telecommunication cables. Yeah, there's not much to say. I mean, when we talked about it the initial time, we were talking about how AT&T sent their own, analyst to go check it out. They're like, oh, there's nothing bad for the environment here. Well, I don't necessarily believe that. It doesn't matter because our friends over at League to Save Lake Tahoe successfully helped them remove the cables. They're gone. We don't have to worry about them.
Honestly, my take on the story is it seems like it wasn't even that big of a deal. Probably shouldn't have been there in the first place. Yes, a huge cable that is going all the way across Lake Tahoe that's surrounded with rubber or plastic or whatever it is cannot be good for the local fish and all of the wild. It's clearly, and it seems. I'll bet you no AT&T service was disrupted in the removal of this. I'll bet you it took one day to do. It's like this should have been done years ago, and we should maybe find some other things, some other examples like this that could just. It probably cost AT&T a pretty penny, and that's exactly what they wanted to prevent. But they make billions and billions of dollars a year. They can afford it.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was, we talked about this not that long ago, and I talked about it on my podcast with Haley Hawkins a couple weeks ago, and they had this would be sometime in 2025 that you're going to remove it. And then I just hop on Instagram one day. They're like, they're gone. And I'm like, well, how hard was that? Why are we making such a big deal? And you're right. It probably cost AT&T a pretty penny, which is why they didn't want to do it. But come on, just do this, Anyway, great job. League to Save Lake Tahoe, otherwise known as Keep Tahoe Blue. Go buy a sticker. They're a great organization doing great things to keep Tahoe environmentally sound.
And that concludes the NorCal Notes of the Week.
Okay, so that's it. So I just, this isn't a long podcast today. I wanted to talk about a couple things because last week, like you said, our father was in town. And we did two things in Sacramento. We did a bunch of different stuff, but this was mostly to appease us and to appease my 2-year-old.
And our dad. The reason that we're in the outdoor stuff is because of Dad. So.
Yes. So the place, and what's interesting is I moved to Sacramento right before COVID. COVID hit. And so there's been a lot of things that we just haven't been able to do. And then, we're busy and, so... The Nimbus Fish Hatchery, I've been there a couple times. It's always closed because of COVID. This time it wasn't. It's the Fall Chinook Salmon Run, and it was awesome.
It was off the hook. And the indoor area, that was like a little bit of a kid museum, but really the fun stuff is just looking at the fish windows is what they called them.
Yeah, the viewing deck or the viewing windows.
Looking at the size of these absolute tanks of fish. And like you alluded to earlier in the pod, they want to get to their next destination. So these 3.5-foot fish are trying to leap with all of their power out of these little tanks to get to what they think is, their breeding ground. And it's startling how much power they have, how many there are, the size of these things. And, seeing your son just fishy, and our dad taking videos, but, not being able to quite get a good angle because he's an old man. He's not good with technology, but it was a great time.
It's very impressive to see so many insanely beautiful fish in one area. And they're kind of, it's almost like cows, like herding cattle, there's these big hunking fish. They're all they're all stuffed in there. They're all trying to spawn, and it's so cool. And you can see over the big cattle area I don't know, the big area, and there's just hundreds of these giant fish ranging from probably 20 to 40, maybe even 50 pounds. I mean, these things were huge.
A couple of them were absolutely massive.
We fished for Chinook salmon on the Sacramento River, and we got 4 of them, and each one were probably 30 to 40 pounds. I mean, these were the biggest fish I've ever seen, and there were a couple that put them to shame, like in that fish hatchery. Super cool. And then you can walk down to the windows, like you said, and look at them like up close. You could see their face. Some of them have obviously had like a crazy journey. They have like, they're all beaten to hell. Just really cool. I mean, there's all sorts of these fish hatcheries around Northern California. Now is the time. Go check them out. You
take your kids. I mean, if they like fish, I mean, this is a way to see wild fish up close and personal.
Great educational opportunity. Great, most beautiful fish you're ever going to see. I mean, these are basically, it's basically like these ocean beings in Sacramento. It's kind of crazy. Well, it's like in Folsom, but anyway, super cool. I had a lot of fun there. Also, we went to a museum.
We went to the California State Railroad Museum.
That place is dope.
I told you, this was my idea. I had been there on an 8th grade grad field trip from Redding. They bussed us down to Sacramento, and that's where we went. And I remember it being awesome, and it was better than I remember.
As you can imagine, Sacramento during the gold rush was a major hub for the entire country, if not the planet. And they needed all these resources to come in quickly, and the railroad system was the only way to do it in the most efficient way. So they had these giant trains, they're real trains. One of them was one of 3 of like the largest in the world or something like that they literally had to build the building around this massive train.
It's never going to move. And it's never built into the foundation. It's like everything's kind of built around it.
Yeah, you tour everything. You learn about all the different stuff. And
it's all so well kept. There's not a speck of dust on anything. Yeah. Sometimes you go to these museums and everything's kind of dusty. Everything was pristine. It was polished. I mean, on that big train, there was literally a conductor up there that gave your son a little ticket, a train ticket that he held onto for the rest of the day that did nothing, but it appeased your son, and he could sit in the chair, and you could ring the bell, and he busts out his little whistle, and so it's great for kids. But like our dad's a huge history buff, and so he's just fascinated. I mean, there was one cart that I loved, and it was the farm to fort capital area. Sacramento's farm to fort capital, which is really close to me, and it showed a cart that's a railroad car that's taking produce, and that requires refrigeration. And before they had actual refrigeration, they just used big ice blocks, and there's a whole thing of how there was this big ice factory but
also they were taking it out of lakes in the Sierra. They were cutting ice out of
producing the ice factory was in Roseville, and then they were loading them here. It's
crazy.
It's really, really cool museum.
Yeah, so I think obviously I have a kid, so I'm gonna try to do more of this stuff, but we just wanted to highlight sort of some cool stuff you can do around Sacramento.
Not to end so again, I went up with our dad to Redding, and we stopped at Turtle Bay. Now, it was during the bomb cyclone, so it was raining pretty hard, but I could see the Festival of Lights at Turtle Bay across the river, and it looked awesome.
Yeah, we're going to go up for that
The whole bridge was lit up purple and green underneath, and I think it's usually the opposite. Whatever it was, it looked fantastic. We didn't stay long because, again, it was pouring down rain, but it was awesome to look at.
It's a great time of year. There's all sorts of events. So, yeah, really cool. Okay, last thing, just really quickly, we got to end on. So next week we'll record 2 podcasts because I'm going to be out of town the following week, and we like to since we're not able to actually report on news, we like to do movie reviews because it's something that we can do that stays timely and it's sort of evergreen. So we have this list of movies we still want to do a podcast about, and I sent you this list. There's 13 of them.
Right.
So let's go through and just go through each one. And should we choose which one?
I think we should narrow the list down, and then we should put out a poll
and see what people want us to talk about. Because we did last time, we did Sasquatch Sunset,
We've done many video.
We've done many of these. I mean, we did. What have we done?
And we did like top 10 movies. We did literally.
We did The Great Outdoors was one. We did Smoking Aces was another. We've done a bunch. So anyway,
E.T.
We did E.T.
There was a Star Wars.
Well, we didn't do a full one.
What about Indiana Jones?
We didn't do a full one on Indiana Jones either.
Again, I think we did like a top 10.
Star Wars, I thought about putting it on the list. A lot of it, like, of course, those final scenes of Return of the Jedi are in the humble redwoods, but a lot of that film is not in there. And so I just thought...
It's in outer space.
It is in outer space. Also, the Indiana Jones is filmed like on the American River, but a lot of it is filmed outside of Northern California. So I want these ones a lot of them are mostly filmed, or at least we can talk enough about it. So here are the films I had. Weak Layers.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. So I told you about this. It's the new ski/snowboard comedy
that
like
was
filmed.
Cold.
That it's like out cold, but it's all female cast.
That's right. You did.
That was entirely filmed at Palisades Tahoe. It is sort of this independent film that I really enjoyed.
Sure.
It's a good time to do it. So that's kind of that's the first one I put up there. It's a new film. I think it's a little timely. Hotel Dunsmuir, filmed in Dunsmuir. It's a horror film.
Hate horror films though.
Independent horror film. I do too, but it would be interesting. Top Gun Maverick.
Love it. Have stories about it.
We have so many stories about it.
Well, we have one story about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's just...
we have one story, and then when we went and saw it together, I guess.
There's a lot to talk about. So we'll put Top Gun Maverick on the list.
Definitely.
Weak Layers. The Sky is Everywhere. So Jason Segel went...
Jason Segel movie.
He went and filmed in Humboldt, and this is mostly filmed in Humboldt. It doesn't look like a type of movie I'd like, but it is somewhat recent. I think it's 2 years old. Apple TV. Trim Season, another horror flick filmed in Humboldt about people trimming in Humboldt and there being a murder or something.
That's funny.
Bird Box. I've never seen it.
You've never seen Bird Box?
Not my type of movie. Dude. But that article when we were previewing that film got a ton of hits because it's filmed like all over like the Eel River, I believe, and I think some Sacramento, but it's mostly Northern California filmed with, what's her name?
Sandra Bullock.
And I think that should be on our list as well.
When was the last time, I don't think you do, but do you like zombie movies?
No.
Like,
I know what it's about. Trust me, my wife watched it.
The movie Dawn of the Dead. Do you remember that one? That one's probably my favorite zombie movie.
Yeah, I don't like zombie movies.
But basically, it keeps you on the edge of your seat the entire time. Yeah. It's almost anxiety deriving. Bird Box. I've never had a movie affect me like that more than Bird Box.
And I know when it came out, it was one of the most watched Netflix films ever. Yeah, so totally. I know a lot of people have watched it.
I've seen it multiple times, and it's not a movie that I tend to watch multiple times. Like once you put yourself through that suspense, it's like crazy.
I know the plot. I've never seen it. I know the plot, and
insane plot.
So we'll put that on our list. We have 1, 2, 3 on our list right now. The Lost Boys.
I love this movie. It's been a really long time.
It's Santa Cruz, so it's South NorCal. So maybe we keep that off the list. But
great movie though. Yeah. I mean, all-time vampire film.
The Majestic.
Never heard of it.
Jim Carrey, filmed in Ferndale. We talked about it on a podcast years ago.
I'd be willing to look. It's one of his dramatic roles.
Yeah, and it didn't get a great reviews, and I haven't seen it forever, but I remember loving it. Bushwhacked.
Sounds familiar.
So it's the guy it's Harry from Home Alone.
Dude, I love that guy.
So he's
also in Major League, or which one is he in, the baseball movie?
I think he's in Major League. He's in a bunch of movies. Yeah. So the plot is, I love this film as a kid. It's filmed mostly in the Sierra. The plot is...
Haven't we done this one?
We've talked about it briefly, but it's a really good film.
Love this movie. Let's definitely keep this one.
I see you just highlighted that.
Dude, totally.
I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Okay, I've seen that one too.
Filmed on the North Coast. I think that's good. Maybe we pass on that for now.
What's that, from 1999? Like, that's a old...
I've seen that movie 100 times.
It's been a long time, though. When was the last time you watched it?
It's been a while, but yeah. Probably my favorite film on this, The Rock.
probably mine as well.
I think it's probably beyond like it's.
I've seen this movie 1,000
Me too.
times.
I love this movie so much, but it's San Francisco. It doesn't necessarily meet our niche as much, but maybe someday we'll do it. I think you're going to want to put this one on the list, Lady Bird.
This is probably the one I want to win.
Yeah, Lady Bird. If you don't know, it's did it win Film of the Year? It almost did.
It was definitely nominated.
I think Greta Gerwig, who
Greta Gerwig.
Gerwig, she wrote and directed this. It was kind of an independent film. It's about her life growing up in Sacramento. It's a really good film. Obviously, this is the Greta Gerwig that went on and wrote and directed the smash hit Barbie, which, I dislike that movie severely, but I know a lot of people do like it.
You point at me. No, we just had this conversation last week because our dad came and he said, "Oh, somebody was watching the Barbie movie on the plane." I was like, "Dad, you've never seen it." Like, I liked it. Zach didn't. It's a 50-50 movie. You either love it or you hate it. I
strongly disliked it. And the last one is Godfather Part 2, which mostly is in Tahoe. I think we leave that one out now.
Yeah, and just do its own no matter what.
Well, we should do it sometime, but I don't think I don't feel like watching it. I don't know.
So why do you put it on the list?
Well, these are just movies for us to consider, but I want to break it down to 4 to 6 films, and we put it to a vote to the audience, okay?
Lady Bird, Rock, Bushwhacked, Top Gun Maverick. How many is that?
Lady Bird, Bushwhacked, Bird Box, Top Gun Maverick, Weak Layers,
Bushwhacked, Bird Box. Bird Box is so good.
That's 5.
Top Gun Maverick, and then Weak Layers.
No, let's keep The Rock out, I think.
Okay.
So I have 5. That doesn't make for a good graphic. I'll put The Rock on there. So we have even 6. There's just not a whole lot that we can talk about with The Rock. I'm also thinking
I mean, you lived in San Francisco forever. We both know it very well. I know,
but what are we going to talk about? Like, I don't
know. I appreciate it. Like,
there's a cable car.
I just saw Frank the Tank do a food review at Gott's Roadside in San Francisco, and it's like when I see stuff about San Francisco, I like it.
Yeah, I do too. Okay, we'll keep it on there. So that's 6. Weak Layers, Top Gun Maverick, Bird Box, Bushwhacked, The Rock, and Lady Bird. It's up to the audience.
Which one we'll do next? We'll probably do one on all these at some point.
So we're going to put this out on a graphic. We'll let everyone vote. And
what's the best way of voting? Do you do that on Twitter? Can you do that on Instagram?
We don't post to Twitter anymore. Instagram, yeah, I'll put like A, B, C, D, E, F, and you just put we could do a poll on Instagram. You can do
yeah.
So, yeah, we'll put it out. We'll see what people want to hear about.
And we'll do that. That'll come out next week?
No. It'll come out in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll film it next week and it'll come out the following week.
I wish there was a Christmas movie on here because then we could do a Christmas episode.
Yeah. Too bad Die Hard wasn't filmed in NorCal. Anyway.
Is Smoking Aces a Christmas movie? Why do I remember?
We already did Smoking Aces. I don't think it's Christmas.
It's during the winter.
It's definitely
there's snow.
It's not a ton of snow.
Yeah, it's true. And we have already done.
My vote is kind of for Weak Layers, but
my vote is.
We'll get to Weak Layers for sure. We'll get to Weak Layers for sure this winter. Bushwhacked is also awesome. I think a lot of people don't know about that movie, and I don't think you've ever seen it.
So. No, I know I have.
Okay.
I know I have.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's
Dude,
good.
I feel like it was like on repeat on TBS forever.
Yeah.
It was one of those that
I watched it every time. I loved that movie growing up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. We'll put that out, and then we will have that podcast out in a couple weeks. Again, we're just trying to avoid another Sasquatch sunset. So anyway, I think that's it. Is that it for the podcast?
That's it for this week.
Thank you for listening to the Talking NorCal podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're also on YouTube under Talking NorCal, and you can find our clips on the Active NorCal YouTube page. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. Also follow Active NorCal on any social media networks. You should probably also subscribe to the Active NorCal magazine. In checkout, use the code Talking NorCal to get $10 off your annual subscription. We have issue number 15, literally sending out very, very soon this week. So get on that list now to get issue number 15 of the Active NorCal magazine. And remember, stay active.
NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and I could spend all day just chilling in the South Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and Darren knows how to do to kick it down in Santa Cruz. Or NorCal, we're hella NorCal, and we get a little cray-cray when we visit the East Bay. We're NorCal, we're hella NorCal.